welcome back to my show. In today's episode, I have a really special guest with us today. He is an amazing author. His first book came out October 5th, and he's an amazing debut author. So I'll be putting all the information about him in the comment section, in the description box. Now, of course, you guys may be wondering, you're telling me all of this, but who is he? Who is this person? And here's what you need to know. His name is George Jreije. Hello, George. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Anika. I am so excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here too. So can you please give me maybe like an intro and synopsis about your latest book?
Sure, I'm George Jreije. I'm a Lebanese-American author of middle grade mostly. My latest book is Shad, Hadid and the Alchemists of Alexandria. So this book is about a 12-year-old boy, Shad Hadid. He's an Arab-American immigrant, and he discovers that he comes from a long line of alchemists. Now, alchemy is a magic that is based in science. It's when you can use regular ingredients to create something fantastical. And Shad discovers that he can do this. And along with that, he receives an invitation to the mysterious Alexandria Academy. It's a fabled school for alchemists. However, when he arrives, he unwittingly awakens a mysterious force, and only he has the key to either stopping or unleashing their plan for the world.
Wow, that's just amazing. So anyone interested in fantasy, science, mythology, this is the book for you. You can find this book on Amazon, your local library. Since this book is relatively new, you could also maybe try finding it in ebook formats. I'm pretty sure they have that. That's how I read it. And overall, it's an amazing book. This is just the book for you. Of course, there are many other books out there, and there are many books similar to this book. And I feel like if you're into mythology, as I said earlier, you would love this book. It's full of that science. It's like a main component. As George just said, alchemy is basically making stuff with stuff you already have, like twigs or mint, basically things you already have. So it makes you think about what you yourself could do. Maybe you have alchemy as a thing you have.
Absolutely. Anybody can be an alchemist.
Exactly. So my next question for you is, what are the hardest things you find while writing?
The hardest thing I find while writing is making sure that I am saying something important with my writing. Because what the magic of storytelling is it allows us to create a complex message and simplify it by having us experience it through someone else, a character's eyes, right? So why not use that opportunity to say something important, to weave in an important message? And I always am very particular about what I'm trying to say with every story that I write. And so making sure that from start to finish, I am weaving in that message and making sure that by the end, the reader has a strong sense of what I've tried to say, and I've been able to make the reader think. I've been able to make them really engage with that message. That is the really difficult thing about writing a story, but it's also what makes stories special.
That's very true. I mean, just getting that's kind of like one of the main things of writing. You need to make sure it's interesting, fleshed out characters. Your job as a writer or author is to make sure that the reader is intrigued and not just flipping through pages just to get over with it.
Absolutely.
And as a young writer myself, I know the feeling of being stuck on how to make a scene as perfect as possible while also making it interesting. Because sometimes what happens is you input down every single thing you can think of, and then you realize this is a bit much.
Absolutely, yes. Scenes can be really tricky sometimes. However, it's important to know that as long as you get it down, you can always revise it and improve it, and even weave in that message that I talked about later when you're revising. So it doesn't be perfect on the first try, but you can continue to improve it later.
Absolutely, yeah. My next question for you is, this is more about the publishing industry. So what's the most unethical practice in the publishing industry according to you?
Unethical practice. Well, I don't think that this is an unethical practice, but it's an unfortunate practice. And it's not even a practice, it's just a consequence of the way that the publishing industry is right now. Currently, we have a lot of people who work in publishing who are not diverse. And because of that, they don't necessarily resonate and relate to a lot of the diverse stories that authors of color and authors of marginalized backgrounds are trying to write. So when we try to make publishing a little more diverse, that will help a lot of authors who come from diverse backgrounds to get discovered, to find people who understand the importance of their stories because they've lived it as well. So that
Yeah.
is something that, publishing can improve upon.
Yeah, that's actually definitely a thing which is definitely true. Because through the statistics or just by looking at your bookshelf, I'm not really I'm not sure whether this is 100% correct, but there are more books with American characters in them in your shelf or anyone's shelf as a matter of fact than books with diverse characters or books with characters who look like you. But of course, if you're American, that's a different thing. Then you have every single book looking like you. But you need diverse authors, diverse books in order to get a reflection of the whole world because the whole world, as I read and researched, I realized there are like a bunch of countries from like I some of the countries I didn't even know existed. They're like super unique, super culture, super like stories behind them. And I feel like as I'm showing in this podcast, authors from diverse backgrounds are talking up on here. And I feel like it gives them the exposure to get their books out there and be like, hey, my book is here too. You can read mine too. And like you can learn something new from this. So I feel like diverse voices are really required now. And I have a huge recommendation for you guys to check out the website called We Need Diverse Books. And you should definitely check that out. And it is a bunch of resources for you to check out. And I will put the link for that as well in the episode notes. My next question for you is if you could meet your characters, what would you say to them?
If I could meet Shad Hadid, I would say, give me the recipe to your favorite Arabic sweet. Shad is a wonderful baker. He's also an amazing alchemist because he's such a good baker, because as he discovers, baking and alchemy are very related. Where baking, you're taking in common ingredients, you're making something delicious, something special. Alchemy is quite the same, where you're taking common ingredients and making something special. And Shad, understanding baking because his grandmother taught him, has an advantage over other alchemists, where he can be very creative and make especially wonderful mixtures. So I would love to hear from Shad how he accomplishes both that with baking and with alchemy.
That sounds like a really interesting question. I mean, I think that if your book were my book, that would be one of the questions I would ask as well. Like, how do you manage everything, yet also be on top of it, on top of your task?
Yes, you got it.
My other question, which I kind of give you a blooper on before we started the recording, was if you could turn your book into a movie, who would you cast in it?
That's a good question, and there are a lot of characters, and interesting characters too, in Shad Hadid. Now, a lot of the characters are Arab, so I will give you one casting that I would love to do. So, in Lebanon, there is a very famous, and she's actually famous across the Middle East. She's a singer, and a traditional singer. Her name is Fairuz, and her songs are considered classics across the Arab world. I would love not only to have her songs featured, I would love to have her cast as one of the main characters, one of the teachers in the Alexandria Academy. I think that would be a whole lot of fun. I think, if anything, that would be my dream casting. There is one especially scary character, Dr. Salazar, who you will meet in the book, and he has a spat of blonde hair on his head, and I really just imagine Woody Harrelson playing him. a very scary, a very tall, a very sinister character, with just that little bit of blonde hair and a mischievous smile. I think that would be a fun casting as well.
That sounds amazing. I mean, it's great to see that you have a brief idea on how it could be, and I'm pretty sure your dreams will definitely come true once your book reaches there. And I'm pretty sure it will because your book is amazing. I mean, I loved it.
Thank you, Anika. That means a lot.
My last and final question is, what resources do you recommend for young writers to use in their daily writing, and just any books or anything in general that you would like to tell them to use to help?
So, when I first started writing, and I started writing late, I was finishing college. One thing that I kept telling myself is it's important to have patience. I knew I was not going to get published overnight. I knew it wouldn't even happen in a couple of years. So I said, as long as I do the work and I enjoy what I write, eventually it will happen, right? It's not a question of if it will happen, but when, as long as you continue to do the work. Additionally, one thing that I found particularly helpful is I would take books I really enjoyed and I would read them closely and ask myself, what did the author do? What did their characters do that really compelled me? And I would try and learn from that. I don't think that you really need any particular class or course. However, as long as you continue to write and you're dedicated, you will succeed.
That's fantastic, actually. I think that's all that young writers want to hear. That because some young writers, they do not want to, or they may not be able to go to school or attend classes or even want to do that kind of thing, maybe because they're short on time or for whatever reason. So I feel like the fact that you can just writing is enough for you to reach to the level where you can actually publish a book or even just submit your book to a competition. It's just you need to write. Just writing makes you a writer. So instead, that's the reason why in some of my questions that you used to ask, I used to say aspiring writer. But then I realized you're not aspiring to be a writer, you're aspiring to be an author, because a writer is someone who writes, which is what you're doing. Whereas an author is someone with books under their belt, have published, and all of that.
Very true. Very good point there.
Because this is something I realized when I interviewed one of the authors previously, and they just pointed out, well, you're not really aspiring to be a writer because you already write. So that really got to me, and I realized that I need to change up my questions and make them more resonating to what it actually is. So anyway, I really liked your tips, and I thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Anika. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay, so guys, that's a wrap for today's episode. Stay tuned for new episodes every Sunday. Although every Monday you will be seeing a new interview, so don't be surprised to see many interviews in a row. That's because of that. And also I have a big special announcement coming up next Sunday, so be sure to check that out as well. Okay, so stay tuned for more episodes every Sunday and as well as Monday, as I said earlier, and keep reading and writing. Bye guys.
Bye guys.